Well, I'm absolutely clear that Caffery and Flea have got something like 6 books in order to continue their story and in order to fully develop their personal stories, as well as just. I think if you look at Ritual and Skin and Gone, they all have what I guess I'd call a headline plot with subplots underneath it. Now those subplots are probably the most complex part of the books, and those subplots are taking not just 1, 2 or 3 books to unravel, they're taking many more, partly because both Flea and Jack Caffery have very complex personal stories. But there's a third character, the walking man, I think you call him Le Marcheur. And he also has an incredibly intricate backstory. And I think that's why I think there's probably, I've written 3 of the Walking Man series, and I guess there's going to be another 3, maybe 4, not quite sure at the moment. At least, yes. At the moment I've written 3 in the series, and now I'm writing a standalone, because I think writers all need to have a little bit of time away. You know, it's a change is as good as a rest in a way, and I think sometimes you need to recharge your batteries and almost sort of fall back in love with the characters. If you're too close, I think, for example, you were talking about Birdman and The Treatment, which were both Jack Caffery books, and I think I was just a little bit too intense with Jack Caffery when I was writing those, so it got to the point where I was bored with him. It was like, you know, the lover that you spend 24 hours a day in bed with, and then suddenly one day you wake up and think, actually, you know, he doesn't wash his socks, you know, and he doesn't squeeze the toothpaste properly, you know, and you start recognizing all these flaws, and it gets very stale. And I think that's what happened to me with Jack. I had to sort of walk away from him for 2 books, which is when I wrote Tokyo and Pig Island. And then there was just something about him that sort of drew me back in. And I was always very impatient with writers in the past who would say that their characters would sort of speak to them, almost as if their character, or do things that the author didn't intend them to do, as if the character had a kind of autonomy. And I was always very impatient with that, because I used to think, no, look, you're the writer, you know, you decide. But actually, I'd have to sort of take a couple of steps back on that now, because I think Jack Caffery really did do things that I didn't expect him or want him to do. Oh yes, yeah. And in fact, the reader, anyone who's read The Treatment knows what happened to him, his brother. But it's not an uncommon device in fiction for the author to give the reader a piece of information that they hold back from one of the main characters. And I've held back. I've given the information about the brother to the reader, but I haven't given that information to Jack. And I think that's where the tension stays. But you know, I've got this series planned out right up until the very last scene, and I'm not going to say whether he exactly finds out about his brother, but increasingly in the later books I explore Jack's search for his brother.